Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Tiara, aka Bookworm Babe, and today I'm going to be doing a mid-year favorites video. So we're we're a bit over the middle of the year. Mid-year would have been like, I guess maybe like June or July, really. Well, June technically, but yeah, I'm a bit late on this, but I just figured we're still kind of in the realm of like the mid-year, so I thought I would put together my top 5 favorites and let you guys know what those books are and why I've been loving them so much. And aside from that too, I have actually hit a little over halfway through my reading goal for this year. My reading goal this year was 50 books and I am at 28. So we're kind of like midway through the reading goal, midway through the year type thing, and so that's why I'm gonna do this video and show you guys what I have. So let's hop into it. So I tried to put these in a bit of an order, kind of like from, you know, 5, 4, 3, 2 to number 1. It was really hard even picking like my top 5, but I really had to like look at like which books that I fly through like the quickest, which ones had the most like impact, which ones are the ones that I still think about, you know, even a couple months after reading them. And so these were the 5 books that I basically came up with that fit those criterias. And so the first book that I have is called Secret Daughter, and this is by Shilpi Somaya Gowda. This book was so amazing. And like I said, criteria 1, I flew through it so quick. It is basically a story, it's like a mother and daughter type of story, but not in the necessarily most heartfelt way that you could probably think of. So it goes back and forth between the different perspectives of two mothers, Summer and Kavita. So Kavita is in India, Summer is in the United States. So after Kavita has given birth to 2 daughters, one her husband had disposed of, she is basically so distraught after her second daughter's birth because she just refuses to acknowledge that this baby is going to have to, you know, like her husband's gonna have to get rid of the baby again because they can't afford to not have a son, and this is again like the second daughter that she's had. So in order to spare this daughter her life, she hops on like a bus and goes into the city with her sister and gives the baby up for adoption. So then we fast forward some years. Summer is a white woman who is in the United States. She is unable to have kids, and so her and her husband is of Indian background, decide to adopt a child, and it takes them to India, and that's where they find their daughter Asha, who is Kavita's daughter. So the story basically follows everything that goes on with these characters. In the years to come, Kavita does give birth to a son. Summer and her husband and their daughter Asha, you know, they go on with their life, and it also shows the thought process that Asha goes through growing up with parents that she knows are not her biological parents, and the only thing that she has from her birth mother is a bangle that Kavita had put on her wrist when she was born, and before she took her to the orphanage. So she would have at least something from her mother because it was really all that she could manage to give her daughter at the time. So I really love the themes of this book. I loved the way, so later on when Asha's old enough, she decides to do like a program where she gets to go to India for like a year, and her mom is freaking out. She doesn't want her out of her eyesight, but her father is like, she can just stay with my family, it's no big deal. And she does. She gets to go, she gets to be with the Indian side of her family who she didn't grow up with much either, so they're kind of like a mystery to her in a way, and she falls in love with all of them and the culture. And you know, there is a pursuit between both Asha and Kavita in order to find each other and have that like moment where one day they get to, you know, meet and see each other, and it gets very close, but it doesn't end up actually happening, which really sucks, but it just makes the book even more heart-wrenching. It's heartwarming and heart-wrenching at the same time, because it's like the loss of one mother's loss was another mother's gain, but then the daughter wants to know, and then she gets so close and doesn't get to know, but ultimately just accepts that she's happy with her life the way it is. And even if she doesn't get to know who her birth mother is exactly, we'll get to like meet her, she can still be okay. So that was Secret Daughter, and it was literally amazing. So number 4 on this list is called In My Own Moccasins, and this is by Helen Knott. So this book is a memoir, and it is, I don't even know where to start. It's very raw, it's very emotional. So Helen Knott is an Indigenous woman based here in Canada, and this basically follows her journey with alcohol abuse, drug abuse, sexual violence, and ultimately her recovery and being able to come out into like a brighter day and like a better life after all the really negative things that have happened to her. And as well, she talks about the issues, like not even just specifically like internal issues, but just the issues that face the Indigenous communities here in Canada. And I read this, I think, I want to say January or February, and honestly, I still think about this book like till now, which is August. It was so unapologetically beautifully written. She doesn't hold back. She's just so raw about what happened. Like, you know, there was a part of the book where she kind of literally just up and ran away with a couple friends to another city, and they were just on like I can't remember how many days long it was, just a binge of like coke and drinking and stuff like that. And you know, eventually she came to herself and was like, okay, I have to go back home. I need to be with my family. I need to be with my child and stuff like that. But it really just shows, like, I don't even know how to say it. It was just, it shows that honesty. It shows the real struggle of something that somebody went through, and you know, the thought process at the time and how it evolved. And I really like that this book ultimately kind of had a happy ending, because in the end, you know, Helen she's able to find sobriety, she's able to work towards healing and happiness and all of those types of things. And again, like I said, just like put aside all the negative things that have happened to her and go forward and look forward into making a more positive life. And I really like that this was like just such a strong like female voice, such a strong, you know, Indigenous woman's voice. I'm not like, for me, this I don't even think I've really read books that were by Indigenous authors before. This one, at least not that I can think of, that I have on my shelf. So this was something that had just caught my attention in the bookstore, and I was like, this sounds really interesting. You know, it's always good to like diversify, like check out other BIPOC women and see, like, read our stories and stuff like that. And this was just such an amazing example of one of those stories. And literally, like I said, I still think about this book till now. So the impact it had was very, very powerful, and that's definitely what made it, you know, part of my mid-year list. The next book that I have, so this is gonna be number 3. This is called Monday's Not Coming, and this is by Tiffany D. Jackson. I actually just read this like a week ago, and I finished it in, I don't know, 2.5 days. It was it was so good. I know, and I'm gonna say that about all of these books because that's the point. They really are like so good, right? But so I don't want to go too heavy on this one per se, because I still have to, I'm gonna talk about it again in like the August wrap up and everything. But basically it follows 2 girls, so Claudia, and then there is Monday. Claudia and Monday are best friends, and then one summer, so Claudia goes away to her grandmother's house, and usually her and Monday write each other letters, they'll call when they get a chance, and Monday never responded to any of Claudia's letters. She gets back home, she's like, okay, like, I don't know what happened to Monday. She tries to call her, doesn't work, her phone's not picking up, and then Claudia basically begins to worry. She's wondering where Monday is. Everything is just completely out of her character. And then Monday doesn't show up for the first day of school. It's the 8th grade, and again, Claudia's here like, how could she have left me alone? It's completely out of her character. So the book goes back and forth between the before and then the after. And so Claudia basically goes on this wild chase, so to speak, because she is so determined that something happened to Monday and something is not right, even though a lot of the grown-ups around her are kind of like, oh well, you know, you never know, maybe she's this, maybe she's that, you guys are at that age, maybe she just doesn't want to be friends anymore. Claudia tries to show up to Monday's house and her mom is basically off her rocker and just, it's insane. And even to that, she's getting lies from the mother and Monday's older sister. They're saying, oh, she's by an aunt's house, oh, she's at her dad's house, and none of these things pan out at all. So basically, the theme of this story, or like the premise of what ends up happening here, is child abuse. It is basically Monday and her siblings are abused by their mother, and ultimately this abuse leads to Monday and her younger brother being found dead later on towards the end of the story. And Claudia just has a very hard time accepting it. And it goes to, even the after is about 2 years later, after the initial, you know, event of finding out what happened to Monday and finding out that she has passed on. And Claudia still goes through episodes where she hasn't fully accepted it. So the story is so powerful in the sense that it talks about, you know, friendship and that bond between two friends, and obviously a friend who just knows not to give up on her friend because she knows something is wrong. And obviously, you know, people come to the realization like, oh, we should have listened the whole time, and realize that this is not just like, you know, little teen girls having like a fallout and one doesn't want to be friends anymore, or something of that sort. It's like something was wrong and Claudia was right. And then of course it's the whole theme of, you know, like missing kids and child abuse and things like that, and the way they're handled. And I couldn't put this book down because the way the suspense was built up had me. I was just like, what happened to Monday? I need to know what happened to Monday, and like, well, where the hell is Monday? Because honestly, at one point it was like, okay, seriously, where is this child? It got really, really intense, and that's what I really liked about it. This is my first time reading Tiffany D. Jackson, and this was so good, so I'm definitely checking out her other books. This was a solid book. Highly recommend it. Number 2 on my list is Trauma. So you guys have definitely heard me talk about this book before. This is by Elizabeth Jaikaran, and it is a collection of short stories that depict the different traumas faced by Guyanese women. It is a really intense book. The stories are literally coming from real women, so these are real events, real things that happen, and it is very heartbreaking. But Elizabeth does such an amazing job of telling these stories, weaving them together, and essentially just making this book both informative and, in a way, I'd say it's almost healing. The way she explores all these topics, and every story is accompanied by a little bit of information, background information. So she talks about the suicide rates in Guyana, for example, which are really, really high, one of the highest in the world. So you get these little snippets of information, and it's very, very useful as well if you're not Guyanese, for example. This book is still readable. Like, it's still something that somebody can pick up and understand and not be necessarily completely lost due to, like, you know, a cultural thing or something like that. It's not a very long book. It's only like 120 something pages, so I read it out in one day. But it was literally just, it was heart-wrenching, but, you know, Elizabeth did this beautiful, like, intro, beautiful outro, and just basically talked about how all of the women in our community who have gone through really hard things and, like, sacrificed for us, we are only coming to a place now where we're beginning to hear their stories and understand just how much the things that they've been through and done for us have really impacted us in this newer generation. And, you know, we're only just beginning to understand those sacrifices and how they've come to just put us in a better place, I suppose you could say. So like I said, I've talked about this book so much, so I won't go completely on about it, but just trust me guys, it is so worth it. If you're from the Guyanese, Indo-Guyanese, whatever, like Caribbean community, it's so worth checking out. It is just such a good book. And then my number one book, so again, this is something that I've talked about so many times, so I won't go too in on it because you guys have just heard me talk about it a lot. If you follow me, I talk about this book all the time. So this is Secrets We Kept, Three Women of Trinidad by Krystal Sital. Krystal Sital is one of my favorite writers. I read this book for the first time this year, back in I think March. I had picked it up in like October of last year, and I don't know why it took me so long to read it, but it did. And once I picked it up, I couldn't put it down. It was like a 3-day read, I think, for me. 2.5, maybe 3 days, I can't remember. It's also a memoir. It talks about the stories of Krystal's mother and grandmother and their experiences with domestic abuse and the roles of women and the things that women have gone through in the Indo-Caribbean, Indo-Trinidadian society and stuff like that. And it's a beautiful storytelling. It's not a completely, like, you know, traumatizing book. There are some really amazing moments of happiness, of celebration, of, you know, celebration of culture, and just a lot of beautiful things. And the root of the book at the beginning is her grandfather becomes ill. Her grandmother is very hesitant when it comes to making decisions about his health, and the family is like, well, what's going on? And this is where the beginning of where all these stories come pouring out, and she was able to put together this book essentially. And I had the privilege of interviewing Krystal on Brown Girl Diary. I think it was like a month ago, and honestly, she is the sweetest person ever, and it was just so amazing getting to talk to her. I had so much fun. It was the best interview ever, and she's just an overall like amazing Caribbean woman, amazing person to talk to, literally amazing writer. And I can't even say like enough good things. Just know, like, this all leads up to why this book is number one. Okay, so that is it for my top 5 books for this mid-year little wrap video. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and let me know in the comments, like, have you read some of these books? Again, like, I know I've talked about some of those a bunch, so have you heard me talk about them enough that you went and like read them and checked them out? Because honestly, like, seriously, if you haven't, you should, like seriously do it. But yeah, you guys get my point. August is going great. I have so much, like, there's so many good reads that I'm getting into as well for this month, so I'm really looking forward to the wrap up. I am looking forward to starting a new series where I'm gonna start talking about like some writing tips and some editing tips and stuff like that, and just, you know, get more into the whole like writing community and stuff like that. And those are gonna be really fun, so definitely keep a lookout for those things. And as always, thank you to everyone who has subscribed, who likes these videos, who just like comes in and checks in every week to see like what I'm talking about and what I'm doing. I seriously appreciate you guys so much. So thank you again, and I will see you guys next week in my next video. Bye.